At exactly 2:34 a.m. on September 22nd, 2024, Jack Ward's massive crane lifted container MSKU 77394111 from the Singapore Star cargo ship. Cameras showed routine port operations, but inside that steel box were $18.4 million in bearer bonds and cryptocurrency wallets. By dawn, Jack had pulled off the most sophisticated port theft in maritime history, leaving only sandbags and a note. Thanks for the retirement fund. Before we dive in, I have one question. How much time do you have? Once you start watching Jack's story, you won't want to stop. This is the kind of true crime that hooks you from start to finish. Hit that subscribe button and like this video. It helps me bring you more incredible heist stories, just like this one. All right, now that you've done that, let's get into it. But this wasn't Jack's first heist. For 3 months, the 48-year-old crane operator had been systematically looting the world's most secure cargo port. The story begins 6 months earlier, when a routine container inspection revealed more than Jack ever expected about what really moves through international waters. Jack Ward knew something was wrong the moment his crane's hydraulic system failed at 11:47 p.m. on March 15, 2024. The massive container HLBU-2847392 crashed to the dock with a metallic crack that echoed across Atlantic Maritime Terminal. Jack had exactly 12 minutes before the morning shift arrived. "Darn," he muttered, climbing down from his crane cab. The container had split along one side, spilling its contents across the concrete. The shipping manifest said industrial machinery, but what Jack saw made his heart pound. 47 gold bars, each one hastily wrapped in plastic and labeled as metal parts. Jack counted fast. At current gold prices, he was looking at nearly $3 million scattered on the dock. His radio crackled. "Base 7, what's your status?" came the voice of dispatch. Jack keyed his mic, forcing his voice steady. "Minor equipment malfunction. Container damage minimal. Cleaning up now." "Copy that. Morning crew arrives in 10 minutes. Jack worked frantically, reloading the gold bars into the damaged container. His mind raced as he sealed the split with heavy-duty tape and repositioned the container on the loading dock. The shipping manifest showed the container belonged to Gibraltar Holdings, a shell company if he'd ever seen one. When his supervisor arrived at midnight, Jack filed his report. Container HLBU-2847392, minor structural damage during routine transfer. Contents secured, no safety hazards. The next morning, Jack waited for someone to report the damaged gold. No one called. No insurance claims. No angry phone calls from Gibraltar Holdings, because whoever owned that gold couldn't admit what was really inside. Jack Ward had stumbled onto the biggest secret in international shipping. Wealthy individuals and criminal organizations routinely mislabeled valuable cargo to avoid theft, taxes, and detection. And he was the only one who knew. For the next 2 weeks, Jack paid attention to weight discrepancies in vague shipping manifests. Container MSKU-1129384 from Dubai was listed as office supplies, but weighed like it contained jewelry. Container BSIU-7739521 from Russia, manifested as art supplies, set off his crane's metal detectors like it was full of precious metals. Jack's modest apartment overlooked the harbor where millionaires docked their yachts. Every night he watched the wealthy while counting bills he could barely pay. His crane moved more money in one shift than he'd earned in his lifetime. "Why shouldn't I get a piece?" he thought, staring at container MSKU-1129384. On April 2nd, Jack made his first move. During routine loading, he accidentally damaged a corner of the container. Diamond earrings worth $12,000 fell out. Jack pocketed them and reported normal operations. No one noticed. The success intoxicated him. Within a month, Jack had mapped every security vulnerability at the port. Camera blind spots during crane rotations. Night shift guard patrol patterns that followed 23-minute cycles. Equipment that could be malfunctioned on command to create distractions. His first real target was container BSIU-4429871, containing $400,000 in rare European coins. Jack spent 3 weeks planning the heist down to the second. At 1:47 a.m. on May 8th, Jack began routine crane maintenance during the guard shift change. He opened the container at 1:58 a.m., found the coins exactly where his weight calculations predicted, and replaced them with lead washers wrapped in gold foil by 2:11 a.m. At 2:13 a.m., security guard Maria Sanos returned early from her break. Jack heard footsteps approaching while he was resealing the container. With 30 seconds to spare, he triggered a real hydraulic malfunction, dumping fluid everywhere and creating a legitimate mess requiring immediate cleanup. "Jack, what happened here?" Maria asked, seeing the hydraulic fluid spreading across the dock. "Equipment failure," Jack said, wiping his hands with a rag. "Hydraulic line burst. I'll need to call maintenance." Maria helped him clean up for 20 minutes while $400,000 in stolen coins sat in his toolbox. When she left, Jack had successfully completed his first major theft. But Maria Santos had started keeping detailed logs of equipment malfunctions. She noticed Jack's crane had problems exactly when high-value containers passed through his bay. 3 weeks later, Jack identified his next target, container HLBU-8847291, containing $1.2 million in bearer bonds from Dubai. He recruited dock worker Dmitry Volkov, who had noticed Jack's unusual behavior and offered to help instead of reporting it. "I know what you're doing, and I want in," Dmitry said. 50-50 split, or I call security." Jack agreed. He needed an accomplice for bigger operations. On June 15th, Jack and Dmitry executed their most sophisticated theft yet. Using a minor storm as cover, they accessed the container during emergency securing procedures, removed the bearer bonds in 12 minutes, and replaced them with weighted newspapers. Federal agent Sarah Mitchell arrived for a surprise inspection 18 minutes after they finished. She found wet footprints leading to the container storage area, but Jack created a distraction by reporting an electrical hazard from storm damage. While Mitchell investigated the fake problem, Dmitry removed any remaining evidence. Mitchell's investigation intensified. She requested access to crane operation logs and equipment maintenance records. Customs implemented new GPS tracking systems. Insurance investigators arrived asking questions about unusual cargo losses. Jack discovered a federal surveillance van parked across from the port entrance. Mitchell had obtained court approval to monitor suspicious maritime activities starting the following week, exactly when Jack had planned his biggest heist yet. Container BSIU-7739411 from Singapore contained $18.4 million in bearer bonds and cryptocurrency wallets, enough to disappear forever. Jack spent 6 weeks preparing the ultimate score. He studied the container's shipping route through 4 countries, identified the recipient as a crypto billionaire hiding assets from divorce court, and mapped exact timing for when the container would arrive during the federal investigators' weekend break. Jack spent $50,000 of previous theft money on high-tech equipment and professional forged documents. The shopping list read like something from a spy movie. Military-grade GPS jammers from an Eastern European arms dealer, thermal imaging cameras to track federal surveillance patterns, and encrypted communication devices that bounce signals through 7 countries. He bought everything with cryptocurrency, using different identities for each purchase. The forged documents came from Tommy the artist Castellano, a counterfeiter in Brooklyn who specialized in federal paperwork. Tommy charged $25,000 for a complete set of fake customs inspection authorizations, emergency maintenance orders, and shipping manifests that would pass any digital verification system. "These are museum quality," Tommy said, examining his work under a magnifying glass. FBI couldn't tell the difference if they had them side by side with the real thing. But Jack's most dangerous gamble was infiltrating Agent Mitchell's investigation. He spent weeks studying her team, learning their habits, identifying weak spots. The breakthrough came when he discovered that junior agent Kevin Torres frequented Murphy's Pub every Thursday after work with his wife Lisa. Jack positioned himself as a regular customer, striking up conversations about sports and work. Lisa Torres was a nurse at the local hospital, chatty and trusting. Over several weeks, Jack crafted his cover story carefully. "I work security at the port," he told her one evening. 20 years keeping cargo safe. Sometimes I wonder if we're doing enough, you know? All these federal investigations lately." Lisa leaned in conspiratorially. "Kevin says they're looking at some crane operator who might be stealing from containers. They're installing new cameras next week." Jack's heart raced, but he kept his voice casual. "Really? That's terrible. When exactly are they planning the installation?" "Saturday morning, I think. Kevin's been working late all week preparing for it." Jack bought her another drink and steered the conversation to Kevin's work schedule. By the end of the evening, he knew Mitchell's complete surveillance timeline, the exact location of new camera installations, and the precise window when the equipment would be delivered. Walking to his car that night, Jack felt sick. He'd crossed a line from thief to something darker. But with $18 million at stake, he couldn't turn back now. The federal investigation had forced him to become the very thing he'd never wanted to be: a predator who manipulated innocent people for personal gain. During final reconnaissance, Jack almost walked directly into Agent Mitchell conducting a surprise inspection of his crane bay. He spotted her 30 seconds before exposure, quickly created a fake hydraulic leak emergency, and spent 45 minutes helping her investigate the manufactured problem while his planning documents sat in plain view on his crane console. The night before the $18.4 million heist, Mitchell received court approval for 24/7 surveillance equipment. Installation would begin at 6 a.m., exactly 8 hours before Jack needed to move the container. At 2 a.m. on September 22nd, Jack began his final operation. A storm had delayed surveillance equipment delivery by 3 hours, giving him a narrow window. He coordinated with Dimitri through encrypted communications and implemented the most sophisticated container swap ever attempted. Jack created a fake storm damage emergency to justify unusual crane operations. At 2:34 a.m., he lifted the Singapore Star container while Agent Mitchell's surveillance team monitored from across the harbor. His hands shook as he opened the container and saw more money than he'd ever imagined. At 2:52 a.m., headlights swept across the container bay. Agent Mitchell had arrived early for surveillance installation. Jack had 90 seconds to reseal the container with sandbags and his signature note, hide all evidence of forced entry, and create a legitimate reason for being there. Jack triggered a real electrical malfunction that cut power to the entire bay section. In pitch darkness, he completed the container resealing by flashlight, positioned his crane to look like emergency power repair work, and planted evidence of storm damage. When the lights returned, Agent Mitchell found Jack investigating the power failure. Exactly what he should be doing during storm conditions. She actually thanked him for working overtime to keep the port secure during dangerous weather. By 4 a.m., Jack had successfully stolen $18.4 million while federal agents watched. The container showed no signs of tampering, weight was correct, GPS tracking was normal, and all documentation appeared legitimate. As Jack drove away, with $22.4 million total from months of thefts, Agent Mitchell's new surveillance equipment came online. The first image it captured showed Jack's maintenance vehicle leaving the port, with federal investigators now able to track his every movement. The manhunt lasted 6 hours. Jack's boat engine failed in international waters, with Coast Guard vessels closing from 3 directions. Agent Mitchell offered a final deal over radio. Surrender now and we'll discuss cooperation. Keep running and face life in federal prison. Jack chose to fight. He threw bearer bonds into the harbor rather than surrender them and attempted to destroy cryptocurrency wallets. Federal agents stopped him before he could destroy everything, recovering $19.8 million in evidence while $2.6 million was lost forever in the water. The trial lasted 2 weeks. Jack represented himself, refusing all legal counsel, and testified about port security vulnerabilities he'd exploited. He claimed he was exposing corruption in international shipping, but prosecution presented overwhelming evidence of premeditated theft. Security guard Maria Santos provided damning testimony with detailed logs of Jack's suspicious activities over months. She described his transformation from trusted employee to criminal mastermind and explained how his thefts endangered the port's international reputation. The judge delivered maximum punishment: life in federal prison without possibility of parole, complete forfeiture of all recovered assets, and a $5 million fine for damages to port operations. 3 years later, Jack Ward was found deceased in prison following an altercation with inmates who discovered his multi-million-dollar theft. His obituary appeared on page 12 of the local newspaper. Former port worker passes away in prison. No family claimed his body. He was buried in an unmarked grave at state expense. Agent Mitchell stands today in the reformed Atlantic Maritime Terminal, watching state-of-the-art surveillance systems monitor every container movement in real time. A plaque reads, "Vigilance protects commerce," installed over the exact spot where Jack Ward operated his cranes for 20 years. Jackson Ward went from trusted crane operator to federal prisoner to forgotten convict. His sophisticated thefts exposed maritime vulnerabilities that threatened national security, but justice ultimately prevailed when greed met its inevitable end. So here's what I want to know. Subscribe if you think greed always catches up with criminals in the end, no matter how perfect their plan seems. And hit that like button if you believe Jack got exactly what he deserved. But tell me in the comments, do you think Jack would have gotten away with it if he had stopped after the first $400,000 theft? Or was he always destined to get caught because of his personality? Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next story.